One of the main ideas of generative grammar is what concerns to linguistics universals and universal grammar, a faculty that is innate to all human beings and that underlies all languages of the world. What happens when we want to study these universals in a phenomenon like Portuñol from Misiones that does not seem like a language per se?
First, what is Portuñol? Following Calvet terminology, we call it a linguistic collage, a hybrid that is not the first language of any of its speakers, but that is put to use in specific communication situations that arise from border contact, in this case between the border of Brazil and Argentina. Our hypothesis is that if we consider Portuñol as a product of code switching regarding communication needs, it is behind the performance in these restrictions that the alternation between two linguistic systems implies that we can observe the hidden design common to all languages. One of the main characteristics of these border languages is that the grammar is simplified and there is a big variability in the order of words. Here, we observe that the intrasentential code switching marks a trend toward the omission of some words, for example, the article el. However, the speaker seems to be aware of the rules dependent on the structure. For example, the canonical order, subject, verb, object that both Spanish and Portuguese share, and the preposition that assign cases.
It seems that sentences in Portuñol are not random, but respond to certain restrictions. Experiments carried out around this reveal that Portuguese speakers reject language change after subject pronouns, interrogative pronouns, and auxiliary verbs. One hypothesis could be that behind these restrictions there are structures made up of morphosyntactic principles that are part of the speaker's competence and that would prevent them from making random combinations of linguistics units. In addition, Lipsky explains that in Portuñol there are times where additional forms are created that do not come from Spanish or Portuguese. That would support the author's position that Portuñol is not a simple exchange of codes, but has a single macro grammar that does not come from Portuguese or Spanish. Border speakers seem to be able to produce creative sentences without violating a series of principles that allow the creation of grammatical sentences. We consider that this may respond to what Chomsky defines as a creative aspect of language.
We believe that creativity appears due to similarities in some parameters of the two base languages. This would allow its speakers to constantly reanalyze stimuli and take advantage of the groups that the universal grammar gives them to combine both languages, which, in Lipsky's words, is much more complex than a simple code switch. Portuñol has not yet been studied in depth from a generative perspective. So we want to leave the discussion open of how linguistic universals intervene when talking about a pidgin. How can we study the competence in a linguistic phenomenon that apparently only exists through performance?